Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about my research to practice topic, which is understanding how breathing techniques affect free throw performance. The reason I decided to go with the research question of can breathing techniques improve free throw performance is because it's a question that originally got me interested in pursuing sports psychology. I was managing the men's basketball team at the University of Richmond, and part of my job was tracking the whole team's free throw percentage at the end of practice. They would shoot for 10 minutes and as a team had to be above 85% or they would run. They rarely ran, but then somehow we were one of the lowest ranked teams nationally for free throw performance in the game. After graduating, I came up with this Hulk theory, or at least I think I came up with it. In one of the more recent Hulk movies, Mark Ruffalo is meditating and has a heart rate monitor watch on. Basically, he is able to recognize when he is going to turn into the Hulk based on his heart rate. I think that something similar could be happening in basketball players when they approach the free throw line. There is likely an optimal heart rate that they need to be able to recognize to perform their best, and learning what that heart rate is and how to recognize it is part of the present research question. Some previous research and a little lit review. Gould 1982 made a push for understanding how the techniques that were being taught to Olympic level and adult athletes could be implemented with youth athletes. Risberg and Angel 1989 conducted research in line with Gould's thinking by testing the influence of imagery or relaxation techniques on a group of 10 to 12-year-old boys. They were already registered for a summer basketball camp. The researchers split the boys into three groups: a group that received imagery training, a group that received imagery and relaxation training, and a control group with no training. What they found was that the boys in the combination group performed best in the post test, and those who only learned imagery performed worst. There was a potential for under-arousal in the imagery group, which also comes back to my research topic of finding the optimal individual heart rate for best free throw performance. Veely and Greenleaf, 2010, have shown that imagery used alone, as well as in conjunction with other techniques like breathing, can help competitive performances of athletes. With this in mind, Post, Risberg, and Mullins worked with the girls' varsity basketball team to understand the effect that imagery had on free throw performance. This research also brought up interesting points due to the fact that Mullins is actually the coach of the team with a background in educational psychology who originally came up with the imagery script. Given the fact that we know coaches have an effect on performance and what mental training techniques they use, Jedlick, Hall, Moreau, and Chandler, 2007, there was a significant difference between free throw percentages when imagery was used during pregame, and performance increased at a higher frequency than expected for in-game free throw percentage. Other interesting points brought up by this article deal with the coach's involvement in the imagery process. The coach played a major role in the creation and the use of the imagery script, which could have a large effect on the overall performance of his athletes. Collinet, 1977, and Ziegler, 1987, both support the fact that imagery use can improve performance in male college basketball players and female college basketball players, respectively. Similarly, other research has been done regarding the impact of the use of imagery or breathing techniques and how they are most effective on closed skills like a tennis serve or shooting a free throw in basketball. I do want to make a point that, as you can tell, most of the previous research is with the use of imagery or the use of imagery in conjunction with other breathing or relaxation techniques. This adds to my interest to understand the use of breathing techniques alone and focusing on heart rate in particular. Awareness is the first step to gaining control out of any pressure situation. Revizan, Pfeiffer, 2013. Without awareness, we would have no starting point to work with athletes. With the present study, awareness is a crucial point for qualitative research in order to have a starting point to recognize what breathing technique might work when approaching a free throw. The present study will look at the use of breathing techniques alone. However, it is important to note that there won't be an intervention of just one technique. The point is to understand what technique an individual athlete might need to use. Athletes will be wearing heart rate monitors that can record the heart rate of the players at the time that they are shooting a free throw during practice. In the pre-test, free throw performance will be recorded, as will information from the heart rate monitor. This way we will be able to hopefully find the optimal heart rate where a player is successful in practice, to then understand if the player needs arousal or relaxation techniques during competition. The hypothesis for this study is the use of breathing techniques, either arousal or relaxation, will improve competitive free throw performance. Here, the independent variable is the free throw performance in competition, which is dependent on breathing techniques, or the dependent variable. I would like to look at male and female Division I basketball players. Ideally, I would be able to get players from different schools so that once the need to compete in the research arises, there will already be that innate rivalry. For this question, a mixed methods approach would be the most accurate way to see the full picture of how breathing techniques affect free throw performance. It would be inaccurate to just look at percentages without taking into account the feelings and emotions while at the free throw line, because then you wouldn't know how to proceed to improve performance in the future. An understanding of what is going on in the external and internal environments of the athlete when shooting a free throw is also as important as whether or not the athlete makes the shot to understand how the results can be replicated in the future. A 2x2 chi-square analysis would be used to compare practice versus competition and breathing technique versus no breathing technique. Then a performance feedback sheet would be given after practice free throw shooting and after competitive environment free throw shooting to compare those environments as well. As mentioned on the previous slide, we don't want to just look at free throw percentage outcomes. However, as seen in this slide, there is slightly more emphasis placed on the quantitative analysis due to the fact that ultimately the free throw percentage performance is what we are aiming to increase and what determines success in competitive situations. The way this would work is to gather information from the heart rate monitors in a practice setting, similar to the 10 minutes of practice that I observed at the University of Richmond. The percentages would be recorded at a team level, while individual performances would be noted as well. The athletes would then take a performance feedback survey in an attempt to understand both external and internal factors that could have impacted their performance. Questions like, what were current stressors you experienced, or how did you experience this stress through thoughts or behaviors, or what did you learn from today's game or practice? Please see page 181 in Applied Sports Psychology for more examples. Then the same process would take place in a more competitive environment like a scrimmage with random implementation of free throws, preferably against non-team members, to then compare the differences in response, both practice and competitive with the intervention and without the intervention to see if the breathing techniques actually impacted performance. As mentioned in the previous research, there is a potential that a coach implementing all of these interventions might actually have more of an impact than an outside researcher. Similarly, there is the potential that personality could play a role in determining whether or not the athlete needs arousal or relaxation at the free throw line. More research should be done in regards to both of these factors. The present research aimed to see if there was a connection between breathing techniques and free throw shooting percentage based on the previous research, showing that there is a connection between the use of imagery alone or imagery combined with other techniques and free throw percentage.